Before I get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I have to first give a shout out, and this may sound kind of cocky when I say it, but I have to give a shout out to myself for coming up with a writing treatment to make this video. Usually whenever I'm making a commentary, it's usually something off the fly, it's usually something off the top of my head, or I'm reading straight directly from the article. But this one, I wanted it to be more personal sounding, and I wanted to, have it be coming directly from me. So I guess you can say this is the first time I actually typed up a whole script for a particular video, and I think that's like the first time I've ever done it. It took me about a good hour and a half in order to type this whole thing up. The video itself probably won't last nearly that long, but that's just about how long it took me to type this up. But I have to give a shout out to myself for even having the dedication to even want to do something like this. But I also wanted to shout out a particular channel, because this is a channel that I follow who I found out actually does their own scripts whenever they're doing their commentaries. And that's the Birdman channel. If y'all are unfamiliar with him, I would highly suggest that you subscribe to his channel. He does a lot of videos where he's calling out a lot of these grifters and different things of that nature, especially when it comes to entertainment and media, which is also another reason why I'm making this video, because I wanted to have my own little taste, or I guess you could say take, at talking about this. Even though I've talked about it before, whether by myself or with other people, but this one I really wanted to go even more in depth to it. But I have to also, again, give a shout out to the Birdman channel, because of the fact that they write their own scripts for whenever they do a commentary. So that just shows you right there that everything that they say comes straight out of his own brain. So if he's out there watching the video, I'm not sure if he's watching it or not. Make sure, first off, I commend you and applaud you for everything you've done so far and all the work you've done so far and will continue to do. As long as these grifters continue to grift out here like they are, I'm always going to look forward to your content. But with that being said, let's now go ahead and get into the commentary. What's going on, everybody? Today, I'm here to do a breakdown in my own way as to why I believe black comic book heroes or characters in general have been sidelined or pushed to the side as it pertains to their representation in the media. The idea that black comic book characters are sabotaged in the media is rooted in a combination of historical patterns, systemic issues, and fan observations. So I came up with 6 points to examine this situation and further prove my point and others onto as why this is. Comic books and other related media such as film, television, and video games were often always dominated by white creators for most of their history. Black characters were either sidelined, portrayed through stereotype, or absent altogether. The first black comic book character was Black Panther and was introduced into Marvel Comics by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby via a Fantastic Four run. He would then go on to get his own comic book cover later on or soon thereafter. And then, interestingly enough, upon my research, I found out that the first black video game character was in an Atari 800 basketball game in 1979. When I researched who the first black hero for television was, I was actually surprised to learn it was Zach Taylor, aka the Black Ranger from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in 1993. Many people actually believe that it was Carl Lumbly who portrayed Mantis, and that he was the first black hero on screen, but he came on 1 year later in 1994. Interestingly enough, later on in his career, Carl would go on to play a quote forgotten hero in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Captain America Brave New World, with his portrayal as Isaiah Bradley, aka Captain America. One thing all these characters have in common is that they all came way after there was a white counterpart for each of their mediums, which leads me to the next mini point. When black heroes were introduced, they often lacked the same development or respect as their white counterparts. In other words, they were just kind of thrusted out there, and whatever they became, they became. If the people received them, they received them. If they didn't, oftentimes they were shunned away, tucked away somewhere, never to be talked about again, opposed to their white counterparts, where they were able to get a full fleshing out, a good character development, a character arc, and let people really decide if they love them or hate them. And oftentimes if they hated them, they were able to dial it back a little bit, revamp the character and put it back out there for another run and see if that revamping actually worked. With the black characters, oftentimes they only got a one and done type of deal. Black characters are sometimes or oftentimes added to fulfill diversity quotas rather than being developed as fully realized individuals. Outside of entertainment media, that can also be applied to everyday life, especially on the job side of things or even within college enrollment. And then you have characters that were underpowered or sidelined, such as Storm. I think Storm is probably one of the best examples that I could use to illustrate this point. Halle Berry and Alexandra Shipp's version of Storm in the Fox version of those universes is the best way I can describe being underpowered. Because Storm is what you would call an Omega level mutant. And an Omega level mutant is the most powerful of all the mutants, and as far as power scaling is concerned. Along with the underpowering of Storm, many people had an issue with the casting in both iterations of the character throughout the years due to the ethnicity. While Halle Berry and Alexandra Shipp do have black in their DNA, the Storm character was never biracial or mixed or even light in skin tone, which many hope is a turnaround in the new X-Men film in the future. Now, in the animated series version of Storm, I would say that they actually show an accelerated rate of her powers. But an issue that some people had with X-Men 97 is that because she was so powerful, she got depowered in episode 2, and then she had to go on a quest with Forge in order to try to find a way to get her powers back, and then that she got her powers back, and that was the thing. So it's like they always have to find a way to depower her because she's really, really too strong. And that's one thing that I've heard when it comes to a lot of black characters, is that they tend to be very OP, which is why they don't like putting them into the movies, because of either they feel like they're going to outshine the white character, or because they don't know how far to go with their power scaling. Another issue that people have is when black characters are killed off or erased. Black characters are frequently the first to die in ensemble casts or are removed to make room for more familiar or often white characters. A perfect example of that for me would have to be Darwin from X-Men First Class. His power is to be able to adapt to his environment, yet he was killed by Sebastian Shaw before going to what will become the X-Mansion, later on then becoming an X-Man. Fortunately for the actor, he has some redemption with Marvel's competitor DC, because now he's going to portray Mr. Terrific in the upcoming James Gunn version of Superman. So I guess we should see if there's also some redeeming on that side of the aisle. And while we're on the topic of being erased and killed off, don't get me started on what they did with T'Challa in Black Panther. That right there is a whole nother can of worms, so I'm gonna just leave that right there for what it is. When classic characters are reimagined as black, such as Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, there's often vocal backlash, even if the story and character are well written. I cannot tell you how many times people have made videos claiming Miles Morales is not Spider-Man, and the same thing goes with Sam Wilson being Captain America. They tend to do that with black characters who take on mantles that were once white, and it also leads me into Riri Williams, who plays Ironheart, even though she's her own character and she's not going around calling herself Iron Man or Iron Woman. She's calling herself Ironheart. And I find it interesting that they're complaining about, race swaps and things like that, when I'll give the perfect example. You had the race swap and gender swap of the Ancient One in Doctor Strange, when in the comics the character is a Tibetan monk and a male, but in the movie they turned the Ancient One into a white British woman. So I find that to be very interesting, when many of them were rather silent about that, but they cry about race swaps and gender swaps everywhere else, especially if the person happens to be black. And then these are the same people that say that we need to create our own original characters, and when we do, they still whine and bitch about that as well. It's not the race swap or anything like that they have a problem with. It's just that they tired of seeing our black ass on screen with their IPs, or even IPs that's not even theirs. Look at Sinners, for example. Even when characters are original and compelling, some audience will still see them as political tools rather than as organic parts of the story. Going back to what I just said, creating original IPs, you know what Ryan Coogler did with Sinners. You know, you still have people out there that try to say that this movie was anti-white, or that it was woke, or it was DEI and this, that, and the third. It's just the fact they don't like seeing black people outside. Okay, they just rather have black people just tucked away, as far away as possible, out of their line of sight. Lack of support from the studios is a huge part of the issue, such as poor marketing. Films or shows with black leads often less get promotional support. Static Shock is a very good example of a show that was critically praised and popular, but was very underpromoted. Word through the grapevine is that while Static Shock was very popular as a show and high in ratings, it was not promoted well through their, I guess you could say, their toy campaign. Let's just say Toys R Us, KB Toys, and any store back then that carried a lot of toys didn't see a lot of Static Shock merch in there that maybe was not on a shirt or maybe some shoes. And we all know through toys, that's how they make their money on the back end when a series or a show is in a heavy rotation. And while Static Shock was a show, it was a seasonal show. So it had to have a seasonal run. So when it was off season, it wasn't making any money, which is why I believe that's why they pulled the plug. And the same thing is happening right now, ironically, with Ironheart, which got one of the worst, in my opinion, marketing campaigns for an MCU show ever. I mean, with the lack of trailers up until a month before the show aired, and also dropping 3 episodes in 1 week and 3 the next week to complete its series run, assuming it does not return for a second season. And I honestly believe the reason why they did the majority in part is because Fantastic Four releases at the end of July, and they want to prioritize that movie heavily because they need Fantastic Four to win. After all, in case y'all unaware, Fantastic Four is the last MCU movie that's coming out until Doomsday, and Doomsday got moved from May 1st all the way to the end of December, so they need something to hold them over. Another major issue I would say is dealing with behind the scenes stuff. Black creatives are underrepresented in decision-making roles such as writers, directors, producers, showrunners, and all of that good stuff, affecting how characters, for some reason, Bo DeMayo is one that comes to mind, but I'm almost certain there are several others out there who fit the mold. Yes, I know he has become a very controversial figure ever since he got fired from Marvel, and he basically got removed from the project altogether. They removed his name off of the second season, even though the second season was done. He was partially done with the third season of X-Men 97, and they removed his name off of that. So a lot of people are wondering what direction this show is headed in once it's all said and done. A lot of people are worried because the first season was so good, and you know the second season, that sophomore season, is often the make or break, and with him off of the project altogether, you know, it's up in the air. And right now, Bo DeMayo is having some issues with his former employers. I mean, this guy stays going in on them every chance he gets, but hey, it is what it is. Like I said, I want to use him as an example of why, you know, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes between him and Marvel. We may never find out. Honestly, if we never find out, it is what it is. Funding disparities is another major issue with these movies. Projects that have black leads often have smaller budgets. Look at Sinners, for example. They had a $90 million budget, but it worked out for the best for them. Oftentimes limiting their reach. Also, going into this notion, there was an age-old trope that movies with black leads do not sell. Ironically, when the first Black Panther movie came out, they claimed it would open up to a $90 million weekend. Fast forward to over 2 months later, the movie grossed over $1.3 billion and became the MCU's first solo comic book hero movie to reach this feat. And ironically, speaking of Sinners, it pretty much did the same exact thing. And Ryan Coogler, being a person who directed both Black Panther and Sinners, this year came out that what was now deemed to be as one of the most successful original movies in a very long time with Sinners. I mean, breaking all types of box office records and possibly getting a lot of awards nominations come award season. I mean, does anything else need to be said on this? I think not. Let's continue to move forward. When it comes to algorithm bias, that's more so on the streaming side. Streaming platforms sometimes deprioritize content that features black characters, making it harder for audiences to find. Going again back to Ironheart, again, you're gonna see Ironheart quite a bit in this video. You've seen it up maybe like 3 times. I had to try to remind myself when the first episode even came on. It's not as far as the day. I knew what day it came on, but I mean as far as time goes, because I don't remember them saying what time it came on. I woke up this morning thinking that, you know, it was already on, because, you know, with Netflix, they'll put stuff on there like when it hits 12 midnight Pacific time, but when it comes to Disney Plus, they usually put it on at a particular time, usually 9 Eastern time. But I completely forgot that was the time it was supposed to come on. And good thing I ended up remembering, especially since it's a 3-episode premiere. Even when black-led superhero media success such as Black Panther and Spider-Verse, it's often treated as an exception rather than proof of broad interest. And I use Black Panther and Spider-Verse in this example because besides their stellar box office numbers between both films, both of which grossed over $1 billion, they were both nominated for Oscars and won. You know, Black Panther was nominated for like 7 Oscars, and I think they won 3. Into the Spider-Verse won Best Animated Feature, which is something atypical when it comes to movies like this, because they fall into the superhero genre, whether animated or not. So it's very rare that something like this happens, but they just kind of treat it as like, oh, okay, it is what it is. And going furthermore with Beyond the Spider-Verse, well, not Beyond the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, I think that movie would have made even more money if it didn't come out in such a packed month. If y'all don't remember, Across the Spider-Verse came out while it was a lot of other big movies coming out around it. I think the Transformers Rise of the Beast was one of them. I truly believe if those movies didn't come out, if it came out in a month where it could stand alone on its own, it would have made $1 billion, because I think the movie made nearly $700 million globally by the end of its theatrical run, which is simply amazing. So I think that was what held it back from reaching that $1 billion. But between both films, the franchise is already at $1 billion. Right now, we're just waiting for them to finally, hopefully, drop that third one, which I believe they pushed back to like 2027 or 2028. I don't know when they pushed it back, but they need to hurry up because we want the conclusion to this saga. Spin-offs or sequels with black leads sometimes face internal resistance or external pressure that's not faced by similar white-led properties. There are a plethora examples sprinkled throughout the MCU. I'm sure there's some in DC as well, but with the MCU, because it's so glaringly obvious, I think that's where people are noticing it or have been noticed it. Upon doing my research, I have found that there are several characters that are examples of this entire spectrum, but I narrowed it down to 5. And the 5 that I'm going to talk about are Storm, John Stewart, Static, Miles Morales, and Sam Wilson. So the first person that I'm going to start with is Storm. The issue with Storm, as mentioned before, she is often underused despite being a major leader in the comics. John Stewart, while popular in animation, he hasn't been or hasn't had a live action appearance, whether it's his own film or whether it's as, you know, a supporting character. However, of course, you know, it has been announced that Aaron Pierre is going to be portraying John Stewart in the upcoming Lantern series, and there was some controversy with that casting as well. But up until that point, he was always excluded from live action. Many fans were even upset when they released Green Lantern back in 2011 and it bombed at the box office using the Hal Jordan version of Green Lantern and not John Stewart, mainly due to the general audience not really being familiar with him opposed to John Stewart. Hell, it was even made fun of by Dr. Robotnik in Sonic 3.
Nano Fist. I haven't seen that since I hate watched Green Lantern in 2011.
Static was critically loved, but no major live action adaptation to date. I remember at one point many years ago, there was a rumor talk of Jaden Smith portraying him after the success he had with The Karate Kid, whether you hated or loved it, but nothing came of it. The latest update that did come from this was allegedly Michael B. Jordan working on a project, but we shall see what comes of that. Miles Morales gained popularity but was initially dismissed by some fans and media alike. Many are even still dismissing it considering the massive success it has become in various forms of media. And then last but not least, you have Sam Wilson as Captain America. I can't begin to tell you the amount of resistance and pushback that character received even before the movie came out. And he was criticized even before his full arc was even told, and I think it's safe to say we know why that is. And last but not least, I think I have to talk about Blade. I mean, I think out of everyone or everything that I talked about up on here, that one probably got some of the worst diabolical treatment in recent time. I mean, we are talking about The Daywalker here. This is the film right here that saved Marvel from going bankrupt, and they were trying to revamp it for a new generation, and it's a travesty what's going on with this. I think the biggest questionable Sabotage has to be this one. This movie was announced back in 2019 at San Diego Comic-Con and has been lapped by so many other projects that were announced with and after it. I mean, it has caused so many actors to drop out of it. One of being Aaron Pierre, Delroy Lindo, both of which went on to do or are going on to do major film projects, while this one's just stuck in limbo. You even have the lead actor in Mahershala Ali barely hanging on. Recently, during the premiere of his new film Jurassic World Rebirth, Mahershala Ali was asked by two different reporters about the status of Blade, and here's what he had to say.
We were really hoping to see soon. When will you start filming Blade?
Call Marvel. I'm ready. Let them know I'm ready.
I know you were just asked about this, but what's the sort of status of Blade? Are you hopeful it's still going to happen?
I'm just taking it a day at a time. I'm doing the best work I can. I just did a movie called Your Mother, Your Mother, Your Mother that I'm very excited about, that I got to scratch my stunts itch. Got to do some sword work in that, and it's a wonderful story. I would love for Blade to happen. We'll see. I don't know where Marvel is at right now. I'm looking for the next great part. I really am.
I mean, even in Deadpool and Wolverine, Wesley Snipes took a dig at the project in that movie, where he basically said there's only one Blade and there will only be one Blade. And then you had the character of Deadpool, played by Ryan Reynolds, look at the screen, of course, and break the fourth wall, and was like, well, he might have a point, taking a dig at how Marvel is dragging their feet. So that means basically you now have movies that are coming into your studios, into your repertoire, and making fun of you right there on the screen. And while it came off as funny on the surface level, it left a lot of people scratching their heads wondering if that would actually indeed be the case. And right now, that's what it's looking like now. I think I read somewhere where they said allegedly now it's supposed to be coming out in 2028. At this point, I'm not believing anything they say about this movie until I see that they say we've officially started filming. When I see that, then that's when I'll be okay, all right, let's go. In complete and utter conclusion, after going through all of that, if you had to ask me the question, are black comic book characters and superheroes being sidelined and sabotaged, especially by these major studios, I would have to wholeheartedly say yes, they are. I would be a fool to sit up here and lie and say that they weren't. Do some slip through the cracks? Yes, but that's a very small sum. Now, of course, many people are going to say, well, there are independent comics out here, there are independent characters, why don't we, go out there and create our own? Yes, we're going to definitely all go out there and create our own comic book characters. Yes, we're going to have our own particular studio or run, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, many people want this stuff to be seen. And many people aren't going to want to be independent forever. They're going to want someone to see their stuff. But on the flip side, on the back end, you better be careful with your IP, because while you might be enjoying Marvel and DC right now, they may try to come and snatch your IP up later. I don't think they're above doing that. I'm almost certain that they have at least a time or a dozen. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.